As New Year's Eve parties roll into the early morning hours, one Pensacola family leaves their house on a mission. It's not to ring in the new year.
It was a rainy, foggy night. A family on Peacock Drive was taking their dog to the all-night vet clinic at around 3 o'clock in the morning. And they pulled out of their driveway, and the daughter that was in the car thought the mannequin had been left on the curb, but her mother knew right away that it was a dead body and went home, called the police.
When the first officers arrived on scene, they found the body on the side of the road. She was wearing a blue dress and had obviously been in a struggle and possibly sexually battered just from her initial appearance.
Police determined the victim is 23-year-old Tonya McKinley.
We grew up in Milton, Florida. It was a nice little community, and we had a lot of friends, and we would go bowling. Bowling was our big thing we liked to do. Tanya had a real big personality. I mean, it wouldn't fit in this room. Her personality was so big.
Oh, Lord mercy. She was a tomboy. She weren't scared of nothing. She was a good girl when she weren't getting in so much trouble.
Tanya was absolutely a firecracker. She was the center of attention. She was the jokester. She's the one that, would start the conversation with in a party, a lot of people around. She never met a stranger.
Tanya drops out of high school at 17 and moves to Pensacola with Vanita.
Tanya was thinking of working in the medical field. We were taking the transcribing classes where you would work for a doctor and transcribe. She was really looking forward to doing that type of work.
Tanya meets Tim Davidson in the late 1970s.
I introduced her to Tim. I thought that they were not good together. They were both strong-willed, hard-headed people. They fought a lot. They had a lot of arguments. She would move out a lot.
Tim and Tanya's rocky relationship takes a toll until a ray of hope changes everything. In July 1983, Tanya gives birth to a boy she names Tim.
Tanya loved being pregnant. She was very excited about it. Couldn't wait till her baby was born.
Everybody told me the same thing. They were like, your mom was great, worked hard, and loved you like nothing else. Like you were the light of her life, you were her heart and soul.
Tanya is excited for this new chapter in her life, but work, school, and a baby at home leaves her with little time for herself. It's New Year's Eve, and Tanya's looking for a rare night out. She and Vanita drop their kids off at a daycare and head out with Vanita's husband, Larry, to Daryl's, a local bar.
Tanya saw a lot of people there that she knew, people that we had gone to school with, the bartender, of course, and we were sitting at a table, and as she did her walking around, saying her hellos. Right after midnight, when we had the champagne, my husband said, we need to go. The daycare closed at 1 a.m. And she said, just go ahead, pick up, my son for me. So I told her, I said, well, who are you gonna go home? Who's gonna bring you home? And she says, I've got friends everywhere here. And she's like, of course I have a ride. She kissed Larry on the cheek, and she hugged me and said, Happy New Year, and I will see you in the morning. When we woke up the next morning and getting, the kids up and for breakfast, and Larry asked me, is Tanya home yet? I said, no, she's not here yet, but she'll be here soon. And then that's when my husband's mother knocked on our door. We opened the door, and she said to Larry, I need to tell you something. And she said, they found Tanya's body.
The working theory was she was in a confrontation with the suspect. She suffered a blow to the head and subsequently was strangled. As part of the autopsy, they conducted a sexual battery kit, which involved taking swabs of the vaginal area. It was later determined that semen was present on those swabs. The semen in 1985 could only be classified by blood type, and it was determined to be blood type A.
Investigators asked him for a hair sample to compare to the sample found at the crime scene. It's not Tim Davidson's. The case of the murdered single mother goes as cold as a winter wind on New Year's Eve.
Very quickly after I started there, the primary crime scene analyst on the McKinley case told me about the case, and it became an important case for me.
Nicole believes the DNA collected at the crime scene 16 years earlier might be key to solving the case.
So here we have actually the original evidence bag. Areas that were identified on the towel, either that tested positive for blood or tested positive for the presence of semen, would have had cuttings taken, which is why you see holes in the towel. Those were cuttings taken by the crime lab. In 1985, there was no DNA analysis. So initially, all the evidence was sent to the FBI, and all you could tell at that time was ABO blood group.
Analysts repeatedly test the DNA, but it leads nowhere.
In early 2019, Nicole Heintzelman came to my office and told me that she had heard of this technique called a genetic genealogy.
Genetic genealogy has been a total game changer in the field of forensics. Because in the past, we've had to rely on offender databases, and now we have anybody and their relatives who have put their DNA into these genetic genealogy websites that is just, opened, the suspect pool from, a few thousand to millions.
We were doing something different, and I really wanted to focus on the genetic genealogy, where those leads would take us.
We would meet periodically, the gene team, and would try to talk out what the best targets would be for genetic testing.
I mean, we learned from each other. I learned a lot from them. Just being in those meetings and seeing how they operated was fascinating as well.
The so-called gene team searches sites like GEDmatch, looking for a relative of the killer with similar or familial DNA.
The first initial round of genealogy identified a third or fourth cousin to the suspect. But again, we were a long way away from the suspect. And I think all of us at that point were a little discouraged.
I got a call at my desk from Chuck Mallett. He said, we got a name, Daniel Wells. I said, let me call you back in a few hours. And I just went at it in public databases. And that stuff going back to the mid-1980s, right after Tanya's murder, very quickly that made it seem like, this might be the guy.
Investigators begin round-the-clock surveillance on Daniel Leonard Wells.
One day, on his way into work, he was smoking a cigarette. And as he drove down the road, he flicked the cigarette butt out the window. Officers that were directly behind him notified another surveillance vehicle a few cars back. That officer stopped traffic, went out into the street, and was able to recover that cigarette butt.
The DNA on Wells' cigarette is a 100% match to the killer's DNA.
All right, let's cut the chase. So that young lady I just showed you a picture of.
Right.
New Year's Eve, 1984, going 1985. January 1st, early morning, 1985.
Okay.
Was found dead on the side of a road. And I have the evidence that you're the one that's there.
Oh.
I have irrefutable evidence that you're there. I'm not doing all this on a guess.
I hear you, but I don't know.
On a hunch. Dan.
Yeah.
Telling you, you're there.
I wasn't there.
After 45 minutes, Wells begins to crack.
You could see in his face, you could see it in his eyes, that he knew it was starting to crumble. He had admitted that, yes, he had met Tanya at Daryl's that night.
I remember that her friends had left her, and she wanted a ride home. And we went by my house, and we had a few drinks and stuff, and it just escalated from that. She I think I hit her in the head, and it knocked her out. And it was a traumatic blow, and it killed her.
Take her out, you put her in a truck, you drive around, and pushed her out and dumped her on the side of the road.
Yeah, like a bag of trash, man.
35 years after Tonya McKinley's New Year's Eve murder, her killer is finally arrested.
The night that I called Tim, I had the privilege of giving him a call and letting him know what all these people had been doing. Hey, is this Tim?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Captain Mallet. I'm with the Pensacola Police Department.
Hey, boss, how you doing?
I'm great. So you don't know me. We've never met. But I want to let you know that I just made an arrest on your mother's murder.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I think you can hear my voice crack because I think it all caught up to me.
Are you serious right now?
Yes, sir. Serious.
Oh my God.
I know it's been a long time.
But yeah, man. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I'm freaking out right now. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
It was just this insane sense of relief. This huge weight, this huge burden lifted off of my shoulders, off my family's shoulders.
Wells might be facing the rest of his life in prison, but once again, he cheats justice.
Approximately 2 weeks after his arrest, I came to work and started receiving texts from our PIO. He said, Wells committed suicide in jail last night.
When I found out that he committed suicide, I felt very, very cheated. How different would my life be if she was never taken from me?